The ECW to TBW analysis on a result sheet is one of the most important health markers for clients. It impacts so many things. At its core, it's fluid balance in the body. What percentage of the water that you're carrying sits extracellularly or outside the cells? It's comparing the amount of extracellular water that you have to the total body water that you're carrying. A healthy range sits between 0.360 and 0.390, but we've found that you want to keep clients closer to 0.360. Now, everybody's a little bit different, but when you start to creep up towards 0.38, 0.39, 0.40, there's something going on in the body. That's an inflammatory marker or something else is missing or going on. And that's our job as coaches to dive into and figure out what that means. So generally speaking, we want to keep people here in this 0.360 to 0.390. But this is the one area where I would say we really want to err closer to the 0.360. Now, personally, I have coached almost 850 nutrition clients. I've seen people in the 0.355s. I can count on one hand the number of people I've seen dive down in the very low 0.35s or maybe the upper 0.34s. I can also only count on one hand the number of people that I've really seen above 0.40. So our goal is always to keep clients as close to 0.360 as possible, or 36% of their water in their body being outside of the cells. But again, that's ultimately up for you as their coach to figure out what this stuff means. So when you explain this to clients, I try to keep it very simple. ECW to TBW analysis is an inflammatory marker in the body. I like to use visuals. I remember growing up where my grandparents had type 2 diabetes and they'd wear compression socks because they had a bunch of extracellular fluid. You can kind of imagine what that looks like. And with nutrition clients, when they eat foods that are very processed or very high in sodium, they tend to get puffy. As a matter of fact, one of my best friends, John, when we travel together and he eats foods that are highly processed or high in sodium, he always tells me the next day, it doesn't feel right. He feels puffy or bloated. And you can look at his hands and he has trouble getting his wedding ring. That is more extracellular fluid in the body. On the flip side of that, if you think about a bodybuilder or somebody jumping on stage and maybe a physique or bikini competition, they're trying to get that paper thin skin where there's very, very, very little extracellular fluid and you're pumping the muscle as full of glycogen and water and intracellular water as you can. So it just helps to visualize those things as you're talking to clients. So for them, I like to word it this way. What we're watching here, depending on what you're coaching, is to keep your ECW to TBW ratio or percentage as close to 36% as things that impact this. Airline travel, being sick, tough workouts, not eating healthy foods. That's inflammation in the body. Generally speaking, if you're coaching nutrition, when you clean up somebody's diet and they eliminate a lot of processed foods, which are high in sodium, it's going to make a major impact in a good way to the score because sodium draws water outside of the cell. Potassium and other things draw water in. That's that sodium potassium pump and maintaining an equilibrium in the body. So understanding how this works is a major deal, and understanding that our goal from a health standpoint is really to reduce inflammation in the body be very helpful. And I'm going to go back up and look at one other section on a result sheet here. And depending on what type of machine you have, it'll actually break down your ECW to TBW segmentally. And I think this is incredibly important for people in all areas of business. But if I'm going to focus on the medical side of things for just a second, I think about myself. I had a lateral knee issue that I was battling for a while. And to make a very long story short, ended up finally giving in after months of trying to rehab it myself and taking peptides. And I was actually very, very impressed at what it did for me. And one of the biggest things is I noticed my knee pain went away. My ECW to TBW ratio in that specific area, my left leg of the body, improved. So this can be a very valuable tool when you're talking to your clients or selling them maybe on services that you offer. If you're on the athletic training side, let's say you're dealing with an athlete that is a thrower or an overhead athlete, a volleyball player, baseball player, something like that. If you're a pitcher that gets done throwing a game with 100 pitches and you're right-handed, maybe you've got that ECW to TBW number that's going way up in your right arm. Put them on the in-body regularly. As that number reduces, inflammation in that area of the body has now gone down. Maybe that's one indicator that they're ready to start throwing. And so it's one thing to look at it for the whole body. It's another thing to break it down segmentally, but it is a major component to how you coach your clients.